Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new episode of Entrepreneurship Lab. This is your host, Nevena Bajalac, welcoming you once again to the podcast where we help you grow and scale your business. And as always, we bring you incredible guests from all around the world, entrepreneurs with hands on experience to share their story that you can learn as well from their knowledge, their experience, and their mistakes as well. And today with us, we have Owen Barrett, and Owen is a climate entrepreneur. He's the founder of Shine, which is a company that's reinventing of how multifamily properties generate revenue through solar panel. And his background is in finance and tech as well. He has a huge bio, huge experience, and very good success. But what I love about Owen is that it's not all about business, but really there is a mission to support families and do something a little bit more of value to people through his business as well. So, Owen, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's pleasure to meet you. I'm very excited to hear your story, how you built everything, where the idea came from. So tell us just a little bit to start with about your background. Where were you before you started Shine, and what were you doing at that time?
Oh man. Well, I've been trying to decarbonize multifamily real estate, so apartment buildings, since 2016. So Shine is sort of the latest iteration of like an ever evolving business model. Although I think we'll stay on this current business model for a while. Um, I got a degree in finance. I worked in finance for a while. Really liked sort of quantitative analysis, but I did not like the financial industry. So I went to graduate school, got a master's in environmental science and management. That launched me into a career as an energy manager for a Fortune 500 company. I worked there for about 3 years. I always kind of had the entrepreneurial itch. So I quit and, I've been doing my own thing since 2015.
Thank you. And how did the idea to shine? Why solar? What are the things that you saw there as opportunity, and also that's going to give back to people as well as a source of income? How did you came on that idea to start the business?
So I had a small exit from a company in 2018, and I took a lot of my personal capital and I started investing in multifamily syndications, which are like when a large group of people buy an apartment building. There's general partners, there's limited partners. So I was passively investing as a limited partner and noticed, pretty much instantly how far behind the multifamily industry is when it comes to energy efficiency, energy management, on-site renewable energy. And so I thought it would be an interesting, I'm a really curious person. And so when I see things that just don't make sense to me, it's hard not to dig in a little bit. And so I thought it'd be interesting to try and figure out why nobody was utilizing on-site solar on multifamily properties as a way to increase NOI and drive value. And I just talked to, I don't know, probably 100 people in the industry over 6 months and just sort of heard the same thing over and over, which is, we don't do anything with expenses. Solar doesn't work. We just do the traditional value add model. Like everyone had the same playbook. Um, and so I thought it'd be interesting to come up with a new playbook where you do sort of the traditional value add model that everybody's doing plus on-site solar and really show the institutional capital world that you can make these investments perform better if solar's done right. And so we bought, I think, $75 million worth of apartments throughout the Midwest, put solar on all of them, kept sort of running into the same challenge, which was we were installing solar on master metered properties. So think of like an apartment building that's built like a hotel. There's, 250 apartment units, but there's a single electric meter. So the solar is really easy. That's not how most apartment buildings are built. Most apartments have individual electric meters, so one electric meter per apartment unit. When you try and install solar on that style of building, you run into this issue where you have to build one small solar system per apartment unit. So 250 unit building gets 250 small solar systems. That's a nightmare in itself, but the real headache comes post installation. How do you build 250 tenants? How do you monitor 250 systems? And the answer is you can't without our software. So we built this proprietary software platform in 2023, thinking it would help us buy individually metered apartment buildings. turns out the much bigger opportunity is actually to just be a niche solar contractor for the multifamily space, utilizing the software. And so we pivoted sort of at the end of 2023, got our first customer in 2024, and we're growing pretty quick ever since.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I love how you're observing and how challenges were leading you in that way. So, uh, is there something like you went into this and a part of, this is a big challenge installing. What was something else that you feel was a big learning for you as an entrepreneur, not necessarily just for solar energy, but building the business? What was something that in this process was like a very big learning for you, like a aha moment, like, oh, I wish maybe I knew that earlier, or, we really screwed this, or like, how are we gonna, because those big problems usually help us develop as entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem that I keep, or the thing that I keep learning over and over, and it kind of comes, it repeats itself, is that unfortunately, the vast majority of people in decision-making positions just don't care about the environment, like, period. So if you can't get things to make sense from a financial perspective, there is 0% chance that what you're trying to do will happen. And it's painful to learn that over and over because I keep sort of getting optimistic or hopeful, like, oh, generations are changing, younger people are moving into leadership, like it should change, but it doesn't. And I get hit with that reality like every probably 3 to 4 months, and it shapes how we pitch our projects. I wish it was different, but it is what it is.
Yes, and like we are as a small entrepreneurs building our business, then you realize how big of a role play the big corporations and politicians, and there is so much into it that we are not actually sometimes aware of. And like you said, you think, oh, this will like make sense. Younger generation, younger CEOs are caring about environment or want to be more sustainable, and then at the end of the day, it comes out to numbers. It's
Yep.
it's the reality that we are facing for sure. And
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, so how are you guys, how did you make it interesting for you? What I read from a little bit your website and everything is that you guys are helping people also make a source of income through this, which is very interesting, I'm assuming, for people who are owning those apartments.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to kind of what I just said. Like, we have no shot of getting owners to adopt solar if we can't show them how it's going to make them more money. And so the problem that our software helps solve is something called the split incentive problem. And that's basically that, you know, tenants in apartment buildings generally own the electric accounts. So they're the ones paying their electric bills. If you install solar on a tenant electric meter, you're saving that tenant money, which is nice. But no owner is going to pay for that solar system to save their tenant money. And so what our software does is it tracks exactly how much electricity is going to that tenant and every other tenant on the property. And then it generates a bill so that the owner can send those tenants a bill. There are still net savings to tenants, so it's not making their cost of living more expensive. But I think the more important thing is that it's creating a way for owners to monetize solar and tenant meters, which historically has not been possible.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And very interesting. So thank you for sharing that with us. And I would like to know, what were some mistakes that you guys did or when you were building the business? It seems like a lot of learning was happening there, like you were saying, and then realizing you need the software and then developing that solution. So what were some of the mistakes you feel like you guys made and you really learned a lot from it so other
Oh,
entrepreneurs can also learn?
oh man, how much time do you have? I feel like the whole show could be about this. Oh, what are the mistakes we made? I think the big, I have my own podcast. It's called Let's Talk More Action. And we had a guest on a couple weeks ago, and he said that one of the best things that early stage entrepreneurs can learn to do is to fire bad customers quickly. Um, we have a couple of customers that are institutional owners, the largest owners in the country. And some of them are great to work with, and some of them are just terrible to work with. And it's really hard as, an early stage company to potentially fire one of the largest apartment owners in the US. But I think we should have like many months ago. So that's always a tough one to learn. I think the other thing too is just um, like hiring. Hiring is such a hard thing to perfect because we raised a seed round, so we do have some money to support us, but even with that, like there's always this chicken or the egg dilemma where even when you're growing really fast, like you don't want to overhire. You don't want to too quickly because our projects take a long time to implement. The sales cycle is like 12 months. The installation period is, 6 months at best. And so we're generating this huge pipeline and getting a ton of projects under contract, but revenue is going to lag like 18 months. And so we're trying to balance hiring people, hiring the right people, hiring the right amount of people. And that is something that I haven't really had to deal with in the past. And, I don't know that anyone can really teach you that. You just kind of
Yeah.
have to like go through the grinds and learn how to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, I had interviews with now over hundreds of entrepreneurs and business owners, and hiring is probably one of the hardest parts actually in building your business and finding the right people. And everybody say, you have to let go of wrong people faster, and like maybe hire slower, really get the right people or right person to the right position. And I think that's the most challenging because it's a human interaction, it's an ongoing process, and also for us, right, as entrepreneurs sometimes many of us like entrepreneurs we love to start a project but we're not finishing and then we have another idea so to be focused on and to build that team, I definitely think from the experience of interviewing so many business owners, entrepreneurs, I think that's one of the biggest challenges definitely in building the company
Yeah,
and
yeah, I
finding the right
agree.
people.
It's a hard thing to perfect.
Yeah,
It's a hard thing
yeah.
even to like do well. Like it's just hard. But yeah, I mean, the thing that you pointed out too is like avoiding the shiny object syndrome. It's really
Mm.
easy to like chase new business models and new opportunities, but every time you do that, you're taking away bandwidth from sort of like your core competency. And I've learned that over the hard way that sometimes it's just it's better to double down on what's working than to think about what could be sort of off on the sidelines.
Yeah. So where is your vision for the future for Shine? Are you planning an exit? You mentioned you think you will stay on this business model for a while. Where are you guys going? In which direction and what are your plans?
We definitely built Shine with an exit in mind. I don't know when the right time for that is going to be. We grew our revenue, man, I think 32x this year from last year. And next year we already have 5x this year's revenue. So like we're growing super fast. There are some changes coming because of the big beautiful bill with solar tax credits, and it's going to be kind of interesting to see like how all that shakes out. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, the goal is to become the biggest solar contractor for the multifamily industry, and I think we're already close. We're definitely the
Yeah,
fastest solar company in the U.S. I mean, I don't have
yeah,
any data to back that up, but I just like
yeah,
anecdotally, I don't think there's anybody growing faster than us. So I think we have a really bright future. We're super niche. Like we
yeah.
are so niche when it comes to contracting and solar contracting. And so I think we're just kind of flying below the radar of a lot of groups because a lot of the solar industry likes to focus on residential and they look to focus on traditional CNI and they don't really understand the multifamily space. They don't have the software to go after it. And so it's just sort of it's on the sidelines. But we've installations for multifamily. And as a result, we're sort of the only contractor playing in the space.
Yeah, and I think having a niche or finding that and really like becoming a master in that, it's also what helps companies exit because then maybe a bigger companies, like you said, that are focused on others, when you develop the perfect software, perfect system, something that's working, they're going to be like, hey, we need to buy into this and just get it and because you did all the hard work developing. So how do you feel? I think a lot of entrepreneurs now we're talking about solar, but any industry, I think niche can be so important to find the right customer, not to spend time, like you said, on chasing wrong customers, trying to sell to people, but speed up the sales process when you are giving something to the really people that want now your product, your service. So what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, sorry, it froze for a minute. What was the question there?
Yes, I just was asking what were your thoughts on like how important is the niche, to having niche and specializing in a specific target audience for in general entrepreneurs.
I think it's super important. You know, let's like there's two ways to look at this. If you're trying to raise a VC-backed company, then niche is not necessarily good because they all look at like the total addressable market. Obviously, the total addressable market is a lot bigger if you're not super niche. That being said, I don't think most people are starting venture-backed businesses, and I don't even really think that it's a good idea. Like we pitched a million climate tech VCs, and I was actually like quite disappointed with how sophisticated they were in the area that they're supposed to be experts in and investing in. So I think as long as you're not trying to go after like a tech startup that's going to be climate or VC backed, I think everyone will have a lot more success if they start niche because the most important thing is just to get traction, to get customers, to have references, like to show that what you're building is there's demand for it. And I've had way more success being focused on a particular industry or particular type of customer segment than just going after everything. Going after everything sounds good, and the numbers get really big really quick, but it's hard to make anything land.
Yeah, and scaling it as well can be very challenging, and finding a way to scale that. So you mentioned earlier in the interview that you had to master your pitch, you had to really adjust the numbers. So can you share maybe an advice for entrepreneurs on like what are you looking for if you, of course, you want to sell solar and you focused on this specific niche. So what are some things that you had to like listen to the market or find out? Is there part of psychology? Is there part of, like you said, finances, numbers? What can entrepreneurs do to really improve their pitch and, get those contracts in?
Yeah, I mean it's all talking to customers, right? Customers and potential customers. Obviously, like early on with a business, you're not going to have that many customers, but you can talk to a lot of potential customers, and even if they don't buy anything, you're still learning and iterating based on what they say. The number one complaint that we hear from multifamily owners, um, some people have bad experiences on the installation itself. Almost everybody has a bad experience post installation. How do they actually confirm that the multi-million dollar solar system that they just installed is working? Which is a crazy occurrence. When I hear say this, I mean it's getting standard now. Like everybody has this complaint, but it's so easy to build out a monitoring dashboard with where like software and AI now. That's our big initiative for Q1. And I think once our customers start to see how well our monitoring performs, it's just going to elevate us to an even higher tier within the industry. Because if that's something that people don't have to complain about, like post implementation,
Yeah.
it just gets rid of so many headaches. And the only
Yeah.
way that we learn that is by listening to our customers and potential customers.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. It's always that customer obsession. I think that true companies, serving and like you said, that post delivery is so important and being there for the customer and improving. And also with technology and everything that's happening, I truly believe that companies, you have to always stay up to date with so many things. You cannot use the outdated systems and, you have to innovate. You have to innovate every 6 months, and every year as well. So it's very interesting conversation. It was really a pleasure. I want to ask as we are wrapping the episode, maybe one final advice, something that you believe for startups is so important and that we didn't mention in the conversation so far.
Stop making business models and just sell something.
I love that.
Like get out of the Excel spreadsheet, get out of PowerPoint, and just go make something and try and sell it. You'll learn so much more than you will like cranking out numbers on your computer.
So are you like did you started with a business plan or without business plan? What was your experience in
No,
this?
I've never had a
How
business.
did you
The only business plan I've ever had was in college, and it because it was required for a class. Like there's such a waste of time. Some of the research is good. I mean, you should do the customer research, you should
Yeah.
do the competitor analysis, but putting together a 10, 20, 50, 100 page business plan is not really going to help your business. Like the way that you're going to figure out if you have a good business is trying to figure out the fastest way to get to a minimum viable product and then the fastest way to sell that.
I love that advice. So, guys, if you're listening, stop overthinking. Stop thinking it's not a perfect time or a perfect day. Just go out there and sell. And like Owen said, if you just speak with your prospects, potential customers, and even people who are not buying a product, you can ask them, "Hey, when would you buy, or why would you buy this? Would this ever interest you?" And just from that conversation, you can learn so much. Thank you, Owen, for being here today. It was really a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So everyone make sure to download, give us some likes, hearts, leave some comments to the episode, connect with Owen Barrett on LinkedIn as well, find out more, follow his amazing work and everything they are doing. And as always, share with at least one entrepreneur that's going to benefit from this episode. Thank you for being here and I see you in the next one.